Hi, I'm Heather Valentin, getting into the holiday spirit here, and I'm going to be working on a painting for you today with Derwent Inktense Ink Pencils. So today I am going to be working on a cradled wooden panel, which is about 3/4 of an inch thick, with my Derwent Inktense Ink Pencils. I'm going to be sketching in ever so lightly with the Payne's Gray, my tufted titmouse bird on a pine branch with a holiday ornament. Now, this is why I chose the wooden panel is because I wanted to kind of give it that woodsy feel to it. This is a different kind of medium for the Derwent Inktense. You can do it on paper, fabric, canvas, what have you. And you can also do it on wood like I'm going to be doing. And like I said, this is going to be perfect for the result I'm looking for at the end. That nice earthy tone I'm going to have, or that earthy grain is going to come on through. And it's going to make this painting almost have a nice vintage feel to it. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and start drawing the little bird. They're really so cute too. They have the most inquisitive little look on their face. I know this may seem like it's darker here than what it actually. I'm really not applying that much pressure to it. I chose the Payne's Gray because they are kind of this slatey blue color, a lot of white grays, and a little bit of, kind of rusty orange peach in him. And he's going to look really cool by the time I get him done. Derwent is, the Inktense are really, really great to play with on wood. And you'll be seeing that here as I progress with this project. I'm going to go ahead and get his beak in. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to break away now, do a little bit of speed drawing for you so we can progress and start painting with these. Okay, so now you can see I have my little tufted titmouse bird on the pine needle branch. I have not added the pine needles to the branch, and I have the holiday ornament. Now, I did not draw a perfect circle, so I did use a little stencil to make sure I had a really nice perfect circle to my ornament, which is really important since this is a Christmas piece and I wanted the ornament to be almost as important as the little bird. Now, I did use the Payne's Gray, and that is all from the Derwent Inktense Ink Pencils that I have used on this so far. What I do have is my trusted paper towels. You need to have those so you can drain the, or kind of wipe off the excess water from your paintbrush. Now, we are working, like I said, on a cradled wood panel. You need to remember that this is different than using illustration board, paper, material, so forth. When you're working with the Inktense. Remember, they are not colored pencils. They are along the line of a watercolor pencil, but they are not watercolors. These are Inktense. They have an ink pigment to them, so they need to be activated with water. Now, since we are working on wood, a damp, somewhat dry brush is essential on this, because I do not want it running for, or, doing too much of a dripping effect or a bleeding effect onto the wood. So, and that is my preference for this piece. Remember, once activated with water, it becomes permanent. So you have a limited window to go ahead and get your ink, activated and spread out before it dries. Now make sure you cover all your pieces that you have laid out as you're working. Let's say this is gray, okay? And let's just say I was going to add yellow to this. I want to make sure that I have all my gray in place before I layer the yellow on top, because if I haven't activated all the gray underneath there, when I add that yellow and activate that yellow, we're going to get kind of a mucky green out of it. And that is not what I want for this bird. So I'm going to go ahead, and I just have a small round tip brush. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and let's start activating this. Remember, we are working on wood. This is not going to dry as fast as paper. And no, I am not going to use a blow dryer to activate this or to heat set it faster. So I'm going to go ahead and leaving the highlight of the eye. As you can see, it's activating nicely and it's bringing out the pigment. Now I would say these are the undertones to the bird, and I am doing them in a stroke-like fashion. It's going to give a nice texture as we go along. These are such cute little birds. I'm going to go ahead see, my brush is barely wet here. That's why I keep going back to on the wood. Since you are applying water to wood, it is on the areas that I have not covered with the Inktense. You can see that the wood is getting wet, so it is kind of a little more difficult to find out what is actually wet and what is actually the Inktense. So this takes a lot more, I wouldn't say a lot more, a little more patience with dry times and everything to make sure you have this. You can see here why he has two lines here is because I went ahead and I sketched in and I wanted him a little fatter, so I came down. But that's going to be fine because this is the underneath part of his belly. So we can go ahead and it's going to help add to our shadow. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this for the rest of the image. Add my water and get this activated. Just using the Payne's Gray for right now, and I'll be back with you shortly once I have that in and the board has dried. Okay, now that I've laid in my undertones with the Payne's Gray, I'm going to go ahead and use my next layer, my next color, which is the deep blue. I'm going to be using the brush tip to the pencil tip for this. And I'm going to be adding some more layers to like my holly berries and or my berries, into the bird's beak. I'm really liking how the gray has dried nicely into the wood, giving it that almost like it was etched in or burnt in, and that's exactly what I was looking for this piece. By doing the brush tip to the pencil tip, it's giving me more control. And that's kind of what I want with this being on wood. Remember, I'm using a very slightly damp brush. I definitely don't want a whole bunch of water. Added onto this wood panel. That would be not good. And when I go over the blue layer, over the gray, it's creating a nice texture and a deeper look to his feathers, which is exactly what I was looking for. Go ahead and bring some of that blue into his eye. Go back up here. Add a little bit of this blue. And by doing this, we're, like I said, giving him different layers, different colors to his feathers where the light could be bouncing off. And I know light bounces off everything. So now you could go ahead and sketch your blue onto the board itself. My preference right now is to keep it a little more controlled and do the brush tip to pencil tip. So cute. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and speed this up a bit, and when I have the blue laid in and dry, I will be right. Now that I have laid in that blue and have the Payne's gray in there, I'm going to be adding the Derwent Inktense burnt orange. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a little touch into the little berries. I know pine branches don't have little holly berries, but I wanted to add some other color to it. And it is art, and I am going out using my little creative liberty here, and the bird's pretty realistic, but the holly berries and the pine needles not. Also note, when you add the Derwent to the wood absorbs the ink, and it's giving it, you can still see the colors, but they're also kind of muting it. So this wood panel gives it a nice different deviation from like using your canvas or your paper. You're not getting the same exact colors because, like I said, the wood is saturating that water and that ink. And it's fine. Works for what I want. I'm going to go ahead and touch the ornament here a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this burnt orange on a little bit of his feathers here. Just adding a little bit of color to the bird. I'm going to go ahead and so like I said, once you have activated your first layer and your second layer, once it's dried, so forth, and you keep adding, look at that. You're just building glorious layer upon glorious layer. And this is what makes this Inktense truly, truly special. Going ahead and hit a little bit of this color in here to his little feathers, up by his little mouth, down here by his little eye. Oh, that's coming out really nice. Like I said, you don't need to be doing the brush tip to pencil tip, but for me, I like the control, especially with using this on the wood. So I don't want to oversaturate it. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little hint of that orange in there. Oh, he's coming along nicely. I'm going to glaze over. It is like glazing. It's the best word to describe this. I'm going to go ahead and glaze over some of that orange here. I'm going to darken this up a little bit underneath this wing. Going back to his little leg here. And going back through and just touching some of these berries. And I'm going to hit a little bit of this orange on this pine branch. Just sporadically, giving it a little color here and there. Okay. I'm going to let this dry and coming back and getting some of the pine needles in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start laying in some of the pine needles. I am going to go back to my deep blue, and pine needles go in all different directions, and this is really kind of fun. Well, I'm going in with the darker blue in the background is we're going to create some depth with our pine needles. Remember, do not do an even pattern on this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take my same brush, and I'm going to add water and activate this. And then we're going to go over it once it's dry with some other colors like greens and some browns. I'm really not worried about activating all of this blue right now. Just enough. I'm going to go ahead and continue doing this. Then we'll be adding in our green. Okay, now that our blue on our pine needles has dried, I'm going to go ahead before I add the green and go back in with my burnt orange. And I'm just going to lay a couple needles down. Remember, pine needles don't grow in particular patterns. Just a few hints here or there. It is so much fun doing pine needles. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lightly go over that. When you're doing the pine needles, make sure your water is applied heavier toward the branch. That way you're getting more of the ink. That's where we applied the first tip of the pencil and pushed out. So we kind of like feathered it out. So more of the ink is going to be closer to the branch, which is what we want because the pine needles, of course, are attached to the branch. So there's going to be a darker area there where they're attached. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and apply the green. And this is felt green. You can make your pine needles and branches however thick you want them. You're the artist or the colorist. The choice is up to you. It's your pine needles. Okay. Get some underneath here by the bird's leg. And at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and add another green. All right. I'm going to go ahead and add my water and activate this and let it dry. Okay, I've added in a couple other shades of green to the pine needles. I've added the apple green and the spring green. Gone ahead and activated them with water. Now I'm going to add the poppy red to my holly berries. I'm going to go ahead and just, and it's all right if you go over that blue because, and that gray, it's going to really bring out a nice effect with the undertones, making them really rich. That's exactly what we want. I am not covering up the entire berry. I want some of the light to cast off, make a nice highlight off that berry. Wow. This is exactly the effect that I was going for. Okay. Time to let this dry, and it's time to work on that ornament. Now that this has dried, I'm going to go ahead and work on the Christmas ornament. The Christmas ornament will have highlights. So I want to go ahead and draw in almost like eyes, I guess, and kind of weird shapes, some without. I'm leaving the center of these shapes. This is kind of like an oblong. This is kind of an off circle one. I'm going to go ahead and hit a little bit of this yellow up here, and definitely want to grab some of this yellow here. Let's go ahead and activate that. And grab that sun yellow and carry it out a little more. Activate the sun yellow with water. Now we're going to go back to our burnt orange. Let me see if I can find it. Now I'm going to use a little bit of tangerine. I'm going to go ahead and bring a little bit of that around our yellow layer. And then I'm going to go back in with the yellow. Kind of go over that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and grab my bigger rounded, that's a good word. Round tip brush. I went with the bigger brush so that the Inktense won't dry as quickly. little more water covers, bigger brush covers a little more area. It doesn't allow that water to dry. All right. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this poppy red to the next color. Ornaments are so easy to do. What they are is just playing on shadows and highlights. Gonna go ahead and add our water. To that poppy red. Oh yeah. Like I said, these are really amazing pencils because of this layers and layers and layers you can build up. I'm going to go ahead and add some darker brown to this and then let it dry, and I will be back. Okay. I've added my white. I'm activating it. I'm going to go ahead and I need my red. Where's my poppy red? We missed a set of holly berries. Okay. There we go. Now it's okay if the wood grain comes through this piece. This is why I selected the wood for this titmouse and this pine. I wanted that wood grain to come through, and it is nicely. I do want to go back in and do a couple more final touches. I have a dark chocolate, and I'm going back to the ornament. Just wanted to add a couple more darker shadows to it. And the dark chocolate will go over nice over that Shiraz. And that yellow and that tangerine. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight some of these twigs area, or the branch. Hit a couple berries along the way. Just going to make this image really pop with just a couple key things. All right. All right, let's activate that. Now, if you wanted to, you could always add a few little white flakes with the Inktense by wetting it and kind of flicking the brush onto it. I'm kind of undecided if I want to add some of that snowflakes to it. So what I'll do is probably just wait and see, and come back and take a look instead of jumping right on into that. I said I'm just hitting a couple of these areas where I've added that brown, giving it some texture. This is a very loose, fun piece. My definition of loose is it's free. You know, it's not super realistic. I mean, it is and it isn't. Go ahead and blend that out. It's just a nice vintagey holiday piece. Perfect for the winter and Christmas and New Year's. Happy New Year, by the way. All right. And I think this painting is pretty much done. I love Derwent Inktense. Excellent. Hope you've enjoyed this video and tutorial. Thanks. See you soon.